So, surprisingly, I am the next speaker. And we're running a bit late, but I'm trying to be very comprehensive. As you've probably heard before, my name is Sven Ehmann. Actually, my day job is working as a creative director of a publishing company, so I do a lot of books. But the reason for being here is that I curated one of the exhibitions at the Łódź Design Festival this year, which is to be seen on the second floor, and it's called The Future Stupid, like today's session. So I'd like to take this about 30 minutes or so to talk a little bit about how the show came about, why it is the way it is, and in fact that's a rather personal story, I'd say. Yeah, The Future Stupid is the question that I got asked the most over the last days was like, why this title? And I think it's fair enough to ask this question because I mean the future. I mean, we all love the future, don't we? It's like this upcoming thing. It's going to be nice. It's going to be full of potential, and apparently it's going to be a better place, better than now. Maybe, isn't it? So what I can say, again on a very personal level, is that in my life so far, the future has always been bright. It was always full of promise. I recall that just like a couple. Is that as noisy for you as it is for me? The sound? Does that work? Is there anything you can do? Can I do something? Is this better? Okay. So my life was kind of full of moments where I felt the future is going to be marvelous. And the wall came down in 1989, and I was there. Actually, as a matter of fact, hold on. I can only do this on one side, but this is me. And you can imagine the impact that this had on all our lives, yours as well as mine. It was not just a day, but it was actually a couple of years that felt as if anything was possible. That's it. Thank you. And this is just a very powerful feeling. It was a peaceful moment. It was a radical change in life, and it opened up all these opportunities. And I think, the same is true if I try to memorize how I kind of perceive the future in the kind of early days of the digital revolution when the internet came about. By the way, that's not me. But it was kind of the same thing, you know. I mean, we were experiencing a radical change that opened up all these kind of possibilities, that challenged your perception, that created ideas in your own mind, led to very new encounters, different types of people, different types of language also. And I guess the same is true. You all have your own type of favorites, most probably, but the same is true in a lot of different kind of contexts, not necessarily all technology-driven, as we saw before. But like the mobile phone is another thing that's kind of as important. And if you look at that, I don't know if you recognize this lady, but if you do, you know that everything is possible. So these are, maybe they're random examples somehow, but for me, what's important about it is that it was, it's an example for moments full of optimism. With this idea that everything is going to be good, the future is going to be a nice place. And I guess that's what it should be, but if we're honest, at the same time, there's also the same amount of moments of pessimism. And this is just the most obvious one, maybe, that again, I clearly recall this being a day where I thought, okay, the future is not going to be as bright and shiny and easy going as I anticipated it before. So in fact, this day would change the future, it would change my future. And it did. I spent way more time in security checks at airports these days. But I guess, the point I'm going to make here is it's not like too much of a personal story. It's really that there's nothing we can do about it. We don't know what the future is. So this is a simple truth. It's not much of a surprise, really. You know, when you start preparing for presentations, one occasionally looks up quotes to pimp it up a little bit and sound a little smarter. I admit I did that as well. And it's apparently, I assume it's one of the subjects that most people in the history of mankind have commented about. So if you go through to everybody from like Albert Einstein to Gandhi, Mother Teresa, even I think Lance Armstrong had something to say about the future when he still had one. But I think for me, the artist, Jenny Holzer, who I wore the term "the future is stupid" from, kind of summed it up the best, because it shows clearly that we should not depend or make ourselves too much dependent on a tomorrow. So what does design have to do with that? I guess when I started thinking about this exhibition in the context of the festival subject, I felt that design always is very much about the future. It's all these kind of images, projections of it might be. We're designing the future, we're talking about things to come, the next trend, 2020, 2050, the year 3000, what is that going to look like? And we have all these visions in mind that kind of tell us this idea of what we're working towards and what we're striving for. And I kind of try to make the point that maybe among all these ideas and utopias and visions, we might have lost touch with the now a little bit. And it makes sense, while having your head up in the clouds, to really have your feet on the ground and look at the stuff that's important today just as well. That doesn't mean that I don't, as I said before, I don't believe in the future, but it's worth recognizing that my notion, and I think that's something that's determined by how media is talking about it and everything, has changed slightly from being very optimistic to being a little more pessimistic about what the future might bring. We're talking about economic crisis, we're talking about pollution, we're talking about nutrition, a lot of these issues that are maybe rather worrying than promising these days. And I think because of that, design should be much more about doing, or as much about doing, let's say, than it is about thinking. It's as much about the conceptualization as it is about the implementation. And you might hear designers often saying that, yeah, but somehow I can't do anything. I have these great ideas, but I can't make a real difference because the clients don't allow for it. It is not, from my point of view, it's not a possibility for a designer, it's a responsibility. So it's something that you, if you're serious in what you're doing, you have to work towards. You have to educate your clients, you have to live with the fact that they might not understand you in the first place. But as we see also from the presentation earlier, for example, there is an appreciation when it comes down to solving a problem, and that's what design is. So, yes, the title, "The Future is Stupid," is a provocation. I think it kind of worked out well. People have responded in a way that I felt made them tick and made them think about what the future meant to themselves. But way more than that, to me, it is a celebration of the 13 projects that I selected and that I feel make a very, very strong statement about today. And still, if you think about it, might have the potential also to influence design in the future, but it is very much about it. And when I started looking at the festival title, the subject that this idea had to work around with, which is awareness, I came to like a very, very personal way of looking at it, asking myself what it was that made me aware, what raised my awareness in design, make me understand better, make me more interested, more engaged, extended my own horizons. And I think, my work in publishing is very driven by, like a fast rhythm, image. And I select a lot, and I've spent very little time with the content actually, which I don't necessarily like, but that's the way it is. And it's always about the shiny, the stuff that sticks out, that is straightforward and into your face. And I felt that this opportunity of curating an exhibition would allow me to maybe go on a slower pace and work with projects that are not necessarily about catchy visuals in the first place. And I deliberately said that I didn't want to do a pretty design show. I wanted something that was not for people to go through and say, oh, I think this for my living room. So frankly speaking, I don't know if you've seen the exhibition yet, but obviously invite you to do so. To me, the whole kind of show is not about the objects. I mean, we need the objects because they are tying you in and making you interested, but it is way more about the story behind. It is about the attitude of the person that started it. It's about the dynamic, the energy within the team that worked on it. It's about the commitment of the company that was behind it and got engaged with it. And that is, if you go down, you'll see the reason for commissioning these posters that are with each of the projects. downstairs, and you can go through this little like comic style infographic that will tell you a little bit of how it came about, what the actual starting point was, what the question was that they came up in the first place, where they saw a problem that they wanted to solve, and you can go along and understand a little better of what it is that they then did to find a solution. So what we're trying to explore, I guess, and this is also the communication I had with Paul Petzer, who's the designer behind these graphics, is how smart's the present. And I mean, design has probably never been as popular and widely accepted as it is now. Everybody has a designer sofa, everybody stays in a design hotel, there's design classes, whatever. But while at one point this is good because more people have an interest and an appreciation, it also devaluates the term design. You know, it's almost random. That's something that a designer has to deal with. At the other end, designer, the whole kind of design industry is searching for not just a new meaning, but a new set of possibilities because they realize that they have more to offer than just working on shapes and forms. And I guess in that regard, while it's a mainstream phenomenon and cultural phenomenon on the one side, it's a business driver on the other side, if you apply it correctly. And with that kind of tension, this moment of crisis, where it's not just about maintaining consumerism on an ongoing basis, but questioning what it actually is that design can offer, you have a very, very interesting potential to implement those ideas, because there's an actual need for that. Moments of crisis are always moments of potential and challenges as well. And when I try to, coming from this, the term of awareness into selecting and researching projects, I felt that instead of working along like big names in the first place, or instead of working along the latest products that I've seen, I would kind of go back a little bit and look at the stuff that interests me in history the most, and where I felt there was the most need for a designer to act. And I was looking at what has been called, it's a term coined by a future scientist by the name John Nesbitt in 1982, what are megatrends. And megatrends, you might be familiar with the term, it defines very fundamental changes in society, economics, technology, that have an ongoing relevance. It's not a short-lived trend, but it's something that has a deep, deep impact for essentially all our lives. Nesbitt started, I think, in his first book with about 10 of those trends. Every new issue of the book saw a couple more. But I was looking at, as I said, at subjects that interested me personally more. And that's a wide range, actually. It's not a precise kind of set of words. It's very associative. So it starts from design in the first place. What are the major challenges, opportunities in design? And then related to that, you might look at craft, you might look at DIY culture, activism, intellectual property. But it's much broader. There's an interest in energy and health and food and safety, war, peace. A couple of really big subjects. And I assume that for a lot of people right now, design would not necessarily correlate with energy straight away. But I guess, I hope, no, actually I'm convinced that I found these 13 projects that do answer some of the very important questions that have been asked in this type of domains. And I'll introduce a few, and the designers that people that contributed to the show that are present here today will also do that with their own projects. What I think I should say also in advance is that I was particularly looking not just for people who are designers by training, so have been to university and got a diploma in design, but I was looking at people that apply design thinking, a design attitude, a design way of dealing with things. And that is because I feel that that's where the most interesting friction happens. So some of the people that you see down in the exhibition, some of the projects they're lawyers by training, they're consultants, they're entrepreneurs, they're people working in NGOs, but they have applied the same type of problem-solving idea and process that I would expect from a designer to offer. And you would see, like, within this sort of little field between those people who apply those techniques, that a lot of very interesting projects can happen, and also help educating others. Because if design is only a little world that's centered around festivals and exhibitions and galleries, it might just not reach out far enough. But if you open yourself up to these people and have a design conversation with them to make them understand that they're actually designers themselves, you might be able to help them even better. So, as I said, some of the people are speaking, and I'm not going to take away from their presentations, but I'll talk you through, I think, 3 or 4 of the examples to show you what I mean by that. A project that, for me, was kind of a starting point. I saw Simon Berry presenting at TEDx in Berlin 3 years ago, maybe. And he is a guy who's worked in development aid for the UK government for years, and realized that there's this crucial issue of the last mile. 1 of 5 people in the world dies because of illnesses that are easily cured. The problem is that the medication doesn't get there. And it is an infrastructure issue, it's a money issue, you need to pay for it. But what he realized was that wherever he went, wherever these 1 of 5 people died, Coca-Cola was there as well. So he came up with this very, very smart idea of piggybacking upon the Coca-Cola distribution infrastructure to distribute medication. And instead of saying, okay, we take away from what you have, we take one of the bottles out of your boxes to replace this by medication, or we put something on top, he used the space in between the bottles. This space exists, you're transporting this anyways, it doesn't make much of a difference, it's a little bit of a weight issue, but not drastic. And what he came up with, and this is his pen and paper prototypes on the picture, is something that it's just a very simple kind of plastic form. So design-wise, you much probably don't get a price for that. But if you look at the functionality and how it actually saves lives, this to me is a great example for what design can do. And then, as a matter of fact, the package is not just a package that you throw away, but it's to measure the medication and everything. It's a functionality issue as well. They developed it with a packaging design company, I think, out of Canada. So, to me, like a perfect example, even though in terms of the initial idea, no designer by training, was simple. A similar project is what the company Ubitricity does. It's a startup based in Berlin that works around the issue of e-mobility, electronic cars. And the problem is that I think there's a pretty broad agreement that electronic cars are a good idea. But the infrastructure that is needed to get it going is owned by companies who don't really have that much of an interest in it. And what they're saying, the energy companies in particular, are saying is if you want to do that, and if you do that with green energy, it's going to be very expensive. So if you put up one of those kind of charging stations in the city, it's probably, let's say, 5,000 euros. And if you multiply that in a way that it would actually work, and you could use your car and you could plug it in at your office in the morning and then take it back at night, it would just be not possible to cover that amount. And this company said, why is it that this charging station is so expensive? It is mainly because each charging station needs a measuring device that is intelligent enough to calculate how much energy goes back and forth. And because that is what you pay for it in the end. And if you would move that measuring device from the charging station into the car would probably go up by 50 euros, so it doesn't matter in the context of what a car costs, it's not an issue. Well, the price of the charging station might go down from 5,000 to 50 euros. And as a matter of fact, you might use any existing power block to charge your car. And I guess, again, this is 2 lawyers, right? No designers involved, up to the moment when they felt they needed a logo. They have actually applied design thinking. They've found a very, very smart way around an issue, and if that kind of goes through, and they're having their first field test this autumn, they actually are the ones that will make e-mobility possible, affordable. And again, I think this is it's a marvelous, if you look at this charging station now, design-wise, it's a catastrophe. I don't know if I should say that, but it's really, there's nothing that's been exceptional or unpredictable about it. But the idea behind it, the structure behind it, the process behind it, I think is stunning. And they have been working with a set of very high-profile industry partners that have been funded by the government. And even though the industry is kind of struggling a bit because it's such a political issue as well, I think that they're a very, very promising company. Very different agenda, it's also been addressed already in yesterday's talk, is Sugru, which is well, if you look at it, it looks like a little bit of rubber gum that you can have in like 5 different colors, I think. You buy it in a small package. But what it does is not just like if you apply it to your camera or you apply it to like a broken item, you can fix it a little bit because you cover the hole or the scratches that it has. I think what it actually does is it changes our perception of a broken item. And not just a broken item, in fact any item. Because it enhances our consumer position in a way that we can not just buy, and if it's broken we throw it away, but we can fix it ourselves, and if we don't like the way that it works, like this camera maybe for a kid was not like handy enough, we can also enhance the product. So we become sort of a co-designer in the process, which is an interesting challenge also for IP, I think, to a certain extent. And the idea is that you would use this little like rubber-like fabric, you apply it, you put it in shape, and over the course of 24 hours it gets stiff, and you can actually put it in a dishwasher. So it's a very, like a radical material in a sense that looks very simple, it's very playful, it's very inviting, but it had a lot of, it's like a long process of material research that went into it, and that project was actually initiated through a design student in the context of her diploma thesis. And I like the fact that how she described her motivation was essentially, I don't want to buy new stuff all the time. I want to hack the stuff that I already have so that it works better. And if we're like seeing ourselves in a situation where for a designer to create just a new item is just not enough anymore. In fact, not designing a new item might be the better and wiser design choice. I think such a project that would help you to work along the existing stuff already is actually a pretty interesting approach. And I just realized when we set up the exhibition downstairs that they changed their claim. I think initially it was hacking better, and now it's the future needs fixing, which I totally agree with. Another project, I think I have another 2 that also show you this kind of mentality behind. This project is by a group, it's called the Home Project, and they have been, their work is very research driven. They are both designers, and but their intention is not necessarily to produce items that are their own ideas, but they are looking for context, social contexts in which they can help existing structures to not just grow but to survive. So they have launched 2 projects now in Portugal where they work with local artisans, mainly older people that were having a certain skill set, a certain experience that was almost at the edge of dying out because they were getting old. And they helped them maintain that kind of skill set, transfer it into a product that would speak to a wider audience, that would reach not just their local markets, but potentially global markets. And they also helped setting up a kind of communication and presentation infrastructure so that the local government in the second project could actually take it abroad to, say, trade shows and reach a much wider audience. And I think from what they've told me about the project, it's amazing to see how it is not just a cultural heritage type of activity, but for everybody that was involved, it really raised their self-esteem. They saw themselves in a complete different context. They started being innovative about the products that they've been working on for 20 years already again. And also that it's a kind of, it's a moderation process almost. There's no design in the traditional sense involved, but optimizing that process, bringing people together that were in the same village but never talked to one another, I think is their achievement. And as a matter of fact, a couple of very beautiful products came out of that as well. And the last example that I would like to show you is the Selbeck project by actually 2 people. It's Mathieu Daniel, who's a French designer, and David Adlitz, who's a Harvard professor who launched the Laboratoire, which is a kind of a research think tank institution. And the product is, in itself, created with the idea that you would need to carry water from one place to the other. And the actual starting point was kind of similar to the Cola Life project, that in rural areas areas in, say, Africa, getting water is a big issue. We're just pulling the tap. For them, it's a matter of survival. It's a matter of hours of walking to getting to a place where you can get clean water. And transporting it back into the community is a challenge, because how would you transport it? So their idea was that they would create a device that would allow people to transport the water. And then they realized that to just do that, you would either need powerful partners or you need a budget. And what is interesting to me, again, is not necessarily the item, but the thinking behind how they would create a budget for it. What they did was they created the item that you see on the picture as a like lifestyle item that people in Paris or around the world, developed world, would buy, and they would then use the money to actually fund the project that they wanted to do. So again, it's an entrepreneurial way of thinking about it, but it's a very smart process development that allowed them to then deliver the same type of device to other people in the world as well. And as a matter of fact, it's not only about decoration. You can remove the lower part of the bag and attach a lot of them together, and then you have a very long thing that you can wear across your neck, which is then full of water. So you see the approach. It's like I'm kind of stressing that one more time, that it's not about the shape, form, material that much as it is about the attitude behind it and the process for the solution for a challenge. And in that regard, I wouldn't necessarily talk about the people as you know, we always have the designer of the future award, or it's not even designers of the present, but to me it's more like, if you wish, the designers of transition, people that are trying to make a difference at the edge between the now and the better future. And the term I'm borrowing from a recent essay by a German sociologist, Harold Walzer, in his technical thing, where he also made this point that there actually is a need for this kind of thinking in the world of design and in the world of those people who work with it. So the future is stupid. Back to that, is it? It is not at all a pessimistic or ironic title, as some might have assumed. And as a matter of fact, I'd say don't worry. I do believe in the future for sure. And if some of these ideas resonate with you, and there are new ideas coming up, and projects that are as amazing or even more amazing, so I'm convinced the future is going to be magic. Thank you.